Ever get that feeling where something just clicks and you're like, uh-huh, got it. I think
Hmm.
we all kind of crave that, right? That's the feeling we're chasing today on this deep dive, that drive to learn and grow.
And we're going to unpack it all just for you. Today, we're looking at how being mentored in an academic setting can actually help you become a better, more independent learner, what's known as self-regulated learning.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fascinating connection, and we've got some really insightful research to dig into, especially the work of Shunk and Mullen. Their research really digs into how mentors can help you develop that self-reliance and learn those crucial skills.
Totally. The research we're looking at today is full of insights into how this connection really works in the real world, the theories and the processes involved. And we want to break all that down for you, figure out the why and the how so you can walk away with something valuable. Exactly. So think of this deep dive as a mission to uncover what makes academic mentoring so effective, how those bonds between mentors and proteges can help you become a more effective learner, and how it can help you achieve your goals, whatever those may be.
So to kick things off, let's clarify what we actually mean by academic mentoring in this context. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, great question. At its core, academic mentoring is about those relationships you build with people in your field who have more experience, a professor, a senior researcher, whoever, and how those interactions can help someone like you, a student or junior colleague. These are those conversations that focus on sharing career insights, giving you advice, and offering personal support related to your professional life.
Okay, so it's about getting guidance and support from someone who's been there, been in your shoes, who can show you the ropes.
Right. And the ultimate goal is to help you, the protege, develop into a truly capable professional, someone who can function effectively and achieve real success in their chosen path, academically and professionally.
It's about more than just getting through a course or finishing a degree. It's about developing you as a professional.
Exactly. And the emphasis on academic mentoring is really important here. We're specifically focusing on the role faculty members and advisors play in helping students and junior colleagues develop within a higher education setting.
Okay, so this is distinct from just being taught something in a class or being advised on which courses to take. And it's not the same as just being coached on a specific skill or going to counseling for a personal problem. So what makes academic mentoring its own thing?
You've hit the nail on the head. The real difference is the development of a bond, a relationship that's strong and, importantly, reciprocal. It's not just a one-way flow of information. It's a dynamic process where both parties can learn and grow. And while the concept of mentoring itself has been around forever, I mean, think about ancient stories and historical figures. The systematic scientific study of mentoring is actually relatively recent. It didn't really gain momentum until we started seriously studying how people learn and develop.
It's interesting, right? People have intuitively understood the value of mentoring for a long time, but now we're starting to get a more scientific grasp of how it really works and how we can make it even more effective. So let's talk about the classic view of mentoring, those early theories and assumptions that researchers started with. What were some of the initial ideas?
Well, the classic view tended to focus on those one-on-one informal relationships where knowledge and experience get passed down from the mentor to the protege. It was seen as a pretty straightforward transfer of wisdom, so to speak. But what's really cool and what's important for you to know is how much mentoring is actually connected to all sorts of different areas of study. We see overlaps with research and learning theories, self-regulation, which we'll get into more soon, adult development, organizational behavior, leadership, even how entire systems operate.
So it's not just about academic knowledge, it's about your growth on all these different levels.
Hmm.
What were some of those core assumptions that researchers started with? What were they expecting to find when they began studying this?
One of the big assumptions was that mentoring is this dynamic process, something that unfolds and changes over time. It's not static. The relationship itself evolves, which hopefully leads to better outcomes and helps the protege become more independent. Another key idea was that there's no one right way to mentor. Every mentoring relationship is going to be unique because you're working with different individuals with different goals and different environments. So, how that relationship unfolds and the specific types of support that are needed will naturally vary from person to person.
It's very personalized, tailored to the individual.
Exactly. And it's seen as a real partnership that should focus on your learning and growth, whether it's you gaining new knowledge, building those crucial professional connections, or even developing your own unique sense of identity within your field. And I think it's worth pointing out that mentors often learn and grow from these relationships as well. It's not just a one-way street. And finally, researchers recognize that mentoring doesn't happen in a vacuum. The broader context matters. The formal and informal support systems that are in place, whether it's institutional policies or just the overall culture of a department or lab, those all play a role.
Makes sense. Our sources pointed to a few specific theories about mentoring. Can you give us a super quick rundown of what each one focuses on?
Sure, we've got personal learning theory, which zeroes in on how your development is shaped by who you are as a learner, who your mentor is, what that learning environment is like, and the different functions a mentor can serve, like providing emotional support and being a positive role model. Then we have collaborative mentoring theory, which emphasizes that mentorship isn't just limited to one-on-one pairings. It highlights the importance of those wider networks where people can have multiple mentors, act as co-mentors, and really share ideas and power. But for our deep dive today, we're going to focus mainly on mentor relationship theory because it's particularly relevant to the idea of self-regulated learning, which is really at the heart of our discussion.
Okay, so let's really dig into mentor relationship theory. What are the big ideas we should be aware of?
This theory, which was really pioneered by Kathy Cram's research, brought a lot of structure to the field. It helped us understand the different ways mentors can support their proteges by identifying two main types of mentor functions: career functions and psychosocial functions. Understanding these can help you figure out how a mentor might be helping you grow.
Okay, career functions, that sounds pretty straightforward. These are things mentors do that directly help you in your professional life, right?
Yeah, exactly. They're actions that actively support your career development and your advancement. We're talking about your mentor recommending you for opportunities, coaching you on your work, helping you become more visible in your field, shielding you from unnecessary obstacles, even giving you challenging assignments that push you outside your comfort zone so you can develop new skills. Basically, career functions help you learn the unwritten rules, the culture of your profession. They help you plan out your career, build your network, and even navigate things like the dreaded job search. Mentors who are strong in this area often act as role models, providing direct coaching and constructive feedback on your performance. So for you, this means seeking out mentors who can actively help you advance in your field.
That makes a lot of sense. And then there are the psychosocial functions. These sound a bit more personal, focused on your well-being as a professional.
Right. These are all about supporting you psychologically and socially as you navigate your professional journey. Mentors strong in psychosocial functions connect with you on a personal level, helping to boost your self-confidence, solidify your sense of professional identity, and just generally make you feel more comfortable and at ease in your work environment. They provide emotional support that can make all the difference. So we're talking about things like demonstrating positive behaviors, helping you deal with those personal challenges that inevitably come up, showing acceptance and validation of your experiences, really listening to your concerns, offering constructive criticism, but doing it in a way that's supportive and encouraging. And what's interesting is that while these psychosocial aspects are so crucial for your well-being, they haven't been as widely studied as career functions.
Which makes it even more important for us to be talking about them. You're really driving home the value of having a mentor who sees you as a whole person, not just as someone to mold into the perfect professional.
Couldn't agree more.
So it seems intuitive that having a mentor who is strong in both those areas would be ideal for a protege. Does the research actually support that?
Absolutely. The research has really solidified the distinction between those two functions, the career and the psychosocial, and shows that they're both significantly linked to positive mentoring experiences and positive outcomes. When mentors provide both types of support, you're more likely to see the protege experience things like a boost in their self-confidence, real personal growth, and a deeper understanding of their field.
Okay, that's great to know. I know some other researchers might categorize or label these supportive actions a bit differently, but it sounds like the core idea that mentors need to provide both career and personal support remains the same across the board.
Definitely. And I think Skandura's work is a good example of this. He added a third function, role modeling, recognizing how important it is for a protege to see their mentor as someone they aspire to be like. But overall, the research really points to both career and psychosocial functions being essential for a truly beneficial mentoring relationship.
So the mentor's actions really matter, right? They can make or break the experience for the protege. Now, mentor relationship theory also talks about how these relationships tend to evolve over time, these four distinct phases, right?
Yes, that's another key contribution from Cram's work. She identified these four typical phases that mentoring relationships often go through. Usually, things start with what's called the initiation phase. This first stage can last anywhere from 6 months to a year. It's that initial period where you and your mentor are getting to know each other, figuring out each other's working styles and expectations. You're starting to lay that foundation of knowledge. And just as importantly, you're building a connection.
So this first phase is about building rapport and establishing trust. It makes sense that it would take time.
It really does. And research shows that during this phase, proteges often say that they feel genuinely cared for by their mentor and that they respect them, while mentors tend to see the protege's potential. It's a very positive and optimistic stage, which is important for setting the tone.
Totally. You need to feel comfortable and supported to really open yourself up to learning and growth. Okay, so once that foundation is laid, what happens next?
Then comes the cultivation phase, which tends to last much longer, 2 to 5 years. This is where the real heart of the mentoring relationship lies. This is where you're actively learning from your mentor and making strides in your career, benefiting from both those career and psychosocial functions we were just talking about. You're soaking up knowledge and skills like a sponge, and mentors typically get a lot of satisfaction from guiding you.
It's rewarding for both sides.
It is. And this cultivation phase is where we see most of the positive outcomes of mentoring play out. It's also, not surprisingly, the phase that researchers have studied the most. During this stage, you usually become much more confident in your abilities. You're starting to hit your stride.
Like you're gaining momentum from all that support and guidance. But eventually, as a protege, you start to become more independent. What happens to the relationship then?
Right. That leads to the separation phase, where the frequency of interactions between the mentor and protege starts to decline as the protege gains more and more self-sufficiency. This might happen because the protege gets a new job, maybe relocates, or sometimes there might be unresolved issues in the relationship itself that lead to some distance.
So the relationship is changing, adapting to a new reality.
Yes, exactly. This separation phase typically lasts somewhere between 6 months and 2 years, and it's a period where you, as the protege, are really testing out those wings, solidifying those skills and that independence you've gained. Some people might still feel a pull to rely on their mentor, while others might feel a sense of abandonment. Mentors, on the other hand, often describe feeling a sense of loss, that empty nest feeling, but also a real sense of pride seeing you succeed on your own. For you, as the protege, this is a really crucial phase because it's about establishing your own professional identity and really stepping into your own as an independent professional.
And the relationship doesn't necessarily end there, does it? There's that potential for it to evolve even further.
Ideally, yes. That's where that fourth phase comes in, the redefinition phase. This is when the relationship shifts to something more peer-like, more collegial. There's still contact, mutual support, maybe even a professional friendship. The research suggests that those traditional career and psychosocial functions become less prominent because, ideally, the protege has internalized a lot of those lessons and is now operating more as a peer.
They've graduated to a new level.
Exactly. But it's important to remember that the length of these phases can vary quite a bit, and the progression isn't always neat and linear. Cram's original model was based on those more traditional one-on-one relationships, so it might not perfectly capture the dynamics of all the newer approaches to mentoring that are out there today.
Makes sense. It's fascinating to see how these professional relationships have their own kind of life cycle, with their own challenges and rewards. Now let's get to that other key idea we touched on earlier, self-regulated learning. What does all this mentoring research tell us about how we can actually become more self-directed in our learning and our work?
This is where things get super interesting. As we've discussed, one of the main goals of mentoring is to help proteges become independent, to be able to function effectively on their own. And that lines up perfectly with the whole idea of self-regulation, being able to generate your own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in a way that helps you systematically reach your goals.
So it's about taking control of your own learning and your professional development.
Exactly. Self-regulation includes all sorts of activities that you might engage in, like setting your own goals, choosing and adjusting the strategies you use to reach those goals, monitoring your progress along the way, keeping yourself motivated and on track, and knowing how to find and use resources effectively. These are all things that can and ideally should be happening within a mentoring relationship.
Okay, so there's self-regulation in general, and then there's the more specific concept of self-regulated learning. What's the distinction there?
You got it. Self-regulated learning refers to those self-regulation processes specifically when you're in a learning situation and you're trying to hit a specific learning goal.
Got it. So if mentoring is done well, we should see the protege actively engaging in self-regulated learning, right?
Absolutely. We'd expect to see it happening before, during, and after interactions with their mentor.
It's not just limited to the formal mentoring sessions, it's woven into the whole learning process.
Exactly. And researchers have been studying self-regulated learning in academic contexts since the 1980s, figuring out how it works and how to help people like you develop those skills in different situations. And the research has shown a really strong connection between self-regulated learning and how motivated you are academically and your overall success.
And you mentioned that looking at mentoring research through the lens of self-regulated learning could be incredibly valuable. Why is that? Why should we care about making that connection?
There are a few reasons, and this is really important for you. First, it can help us address some of the limitations of current mentoring research, which sometimes focuses too narrowly on outcomes without digging into the process of how those outcomes are achieved. Second, because the whole point of mentoring is to help you become more independent in your learning, self-regulated learning is clearly a key outcome we should be studying more closely. And third, the research methods used to study self-regulated learning methods that are really good at capturing the dynamic nature of learning are also a perfect fit for studying the complex interactions that happen during mentoring.
So we can use those same tools to get a deeper understanding of what's happening in these relationships. And you're focusing specifically on academic context for now, but this research could have implications beyond academia, right?
Yes, definitely. While our focus today is on academic settings, there's huge potential to apply this understanding to mentoring in other contexts. Professional settings, community organizations, really anywhere where learning and development are happening.
I can see how this could be beneficial for people across all kinds of fields and professions. So what do you see as the potential benefits of bringing these two fields together? What could this research ultimately do for us?
We think it can do quite a bit, actually. First, doing better research in this area, research that looks at both mentoring and self-regulated learning, will probably give us a clearer picture of how they actually work together, which will help you, as a learner, function more effectively and reach your goals. Second, a stronger foundation of mentoring research in academic settings could lead to both better theories about mentoring and more effective practical applications of mentoring. This could be a game changer for retention in various fields and for long-term career success, which benefits everyone. And third, we hope it might inspire more researchers who focus on self-regulated learning to expand their scope and start looking at the impact of mentoring, both formal and informal, as a key area for your development. It's about widening the lens.
It sounds like a really promising area for research, with potential benefits for a lot of people. Now let's zoom in on self-regulated learning itself. What are the key ideas behind this concept? What do you really need to know about how it works?
So, the research and theory behind self-regulated learning draws from all these different fields: how we manage ourselves, how education works, the psychology behind it all. Early work in this area focused on behavioral self-control, things like managing your time and getting stuff done. And researchers started to wonder if those same ideas could apply to learning in academic settings, and the answer is a resounding yes. While there are a bunch of different theories about how self-regulated learning actually works, there are some key things they all agree on, things that are important for you to understand.
So let's break it down. What are the essential elements of self-regulated learning?
Okay, one core idea is that it's about you being an active participant in your learning on multiple levels. It's not just about doing stuff, it's also about how you think, how you keep track of your own thought processes, what keeps you motivated. It's a much more holistic view of learning. Another key idea is that it's a dynamic, ongoing process. It's often described as a cycle. As a self-regulated learner, you're constantly setting goals, checking in on your progress towards those goals, and adjusting your strategies as needed. It's not a one-and-done kind of thing. And then, this might be surprising, but the research has shown that when your goals are focused on learning and improving your skills, you're actually better at self-regulation than when you're just focused on getting good grades or hitting a certain performance benchmark. It's about being driven by a love of learning itself.
So it's better to focus on the process than the outcome in a way.
In a sense, yeah. And finally, and this is huge E, your motivation is absolutely central. Understanding why you choose to take control of your learning and what keeps you going when things get tough, that's where the magic happens.
It's that intrinsic drive. And there are different theoretical frameworks that explain how self-regulated learning works, right?
Yep. There are a few big ones that we see pop up again and again: social cognitive theory, information processing theory, and social constructivist theory.
Could we quickly touch on those?
Absolutely. Information processing theory often frames self-regulated learning through the lens of metacognition, your awareness and understanding of your own thinking processes. It's about your ability to be in the driver's seat, monitoring and directing your actions to reach your goals. Social constructivist theory focuses on the social context of learning. It highlights how learning happens in those social environments through interactions with others. But because academic mentoring is all about those dynamic interpersonal connections, we're going to zero in on social cognitive theory. This theory gives us some really valuable insights into how you can use those mentoring relationships to become a more effective learner.
Okay, let's do that. Let's unpack social cognitive theory a bit more and how it views our capacity for self-regulation.
So, social cognitive theory sees your behavior as the result of this constant interaction between your personal factors, the things going on inside your head, like your thoughts and feelings, your actual behaviors, and the social and environmental influences around you. It's all interconnected, a dynamic interplay. This theory really emphasizes that you have the power to proactively shape your own thoughts, your own actions, and even the environments you're in to achieve the things you want.
So it's not just about reacting to what's happening around you. It's about actively shaping your own reality.
Right. And Albert Bandura, one of the pioneers of this theory, identified these three core aspects of self-regulation that are super important for you to understand: self-observation, self-judgment, and self-reaction. Think of them as your self-regulation toolkit.
Let's break those down a bit more. What does each of those entail?
Sure, self-observation is all about paying attention to what you're doing, tracking your progress, basically being mindful of your actions and your learning process. Self-judgment is that next step where you evaluate how well you're doing, how you're stacking up against those goals you've set for yourself. And then self-reaction is about how you respond to those evaluations. Do you feel proud of yourself, discouraged, frustrated? Those reactions can either fuel your motivation or drain it, so they're really important.
So it's not just about doing the work. It's about being aware of how you're doing and how that's making you feel. That emotional component seems really key.
It absolutely is. And then Barry Zimmerman built on all this with his famous three-phase model of self-regulation. He talks about forethought, performance, and self-reflection. Thinking about these phases can really help you understand how you learn.
Okay, so can you break those down for us a bit so we can see how they apply to our own learning experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. The forethought phase happens before you start working on a task. It's about setting your goals, planning out those strategies you're going to use, even organizing your study environment in a way that supports you. It's also about building your confidence that you can succeed.
So it's like setting the stage for success before you even begin.
Exactly. The performance phase, which is sometimes called volitional control, is all about what's happening when you're actually doing the work. You're putting those strategies into action and you're monitoring how well they're working. Are they helping you move towards your goal? Are you on track? And then the self-reflection phase is about what happens after you finish the task. You think back on how things went, what went well, what didn't go so well, and based on that, you decide whether to stick with those strategies or mix things up for next time. And that self-reflection then feeds back into the forethought phase for the next time around.
So it's this continuous cycle of planning, acting, and reflecting. You're constantly learning and refining your approach.
Precisely. And then Paul Pintrich came along and developed a slightly more detailed model, breaking it down into four phases. He has forethought, planning, and activation, monitoring, control, and reaction and reflection.
So he's adding more nuance, more layers to the process.
Right. And within each of those phases, he dives into those specific areas where you can practice self-regulation: your thinking, your motivation and emotions, your behavior, and the context you're learning in, really unpacking it all.
Understanding these different models can give us such a valuable toolkit for really taking charge of our learning. Now, based on the social cognitive perspective, how does our ability to self-regulate actually develop over time?
So this is super interesting. Social cognitive theory suggests that self-regulated learning kind of unfolds in these stages, starting with a lot of external support and guidance, and gradually moving towards that internal self-direction. Think about it like learning to ride a bike. At first, you need those training wheels, but eventually, you're cruising on your own. So the first level in this process is observation. This is where you're picking up those basic skills and strategies by watching other people. It's like your mentor showing you how to do something or coaching you through it. Then comes emulation, where you start practicing, trying to copy what you've seen, trying to get it right. Both of these initial stages rely heavily on those social interactions. You're getting a lot of help from outside.
So we're really learning through social interaction and modeling, trying to imitate those we admire. What happens when we start to internalize those skills?
Exactly. That brings us to level 3, self-control. Now, you're starting to be able to use those skills and strategies on your own when you're faced with similar tasks. You're still basically following the patterns that were modeled for you, but you're doing it independently.
Okay, so you're not relying on that constant external support anymore. You're starting to take the wheel.
Right. And then ideally, you hit that final level, self-regulation. This is where you can really adapt those skills and strategies depending on the situation. You've really internalized them. You can apply them in completely new contexts outside of that original learning environment. You're adjusting them as needed, and you're staying motivated. This is what it looks like to be a truly self-directed learner.
And that progression from needing help to being totally self-driven really mirrors what we're hoping to see in a successful mentoring relationship, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's that same journey.
You mentioned earlier that internalization is a key concept here. Can you unpack that for us a bit more? What does it mean to internalize those skills and insights? Why is it so important?
Internalization is huge, GE. It's what allows you to transition from needing that constant hand-holding to being able to learn and apply knowledge on your own, independently. It's the bridge between guided learning and self-directed learning. When knowledge and skills become truly internalized, they fall under your own control. You're not just following a set of instructions anymore, you understand the why behind them. While you can learn without internalizing, think about following a recipe step by step without really understanding why you're doing those things. It's internalization that gives you that deeper understanding and allows you to apply what you've learned to new situations. It helps you develop your own inner compass for learning, with your own goals, your own ways of monitoring your progress, and your own problem-solving strategies.
So it's about developing that sense of ownership over your learning process, right?
Exactly. It's about becoming the author of your own learning story.
Our sources also brought up these concepts of co-regulation and socially shared regulation.
Yeah.
Can you explain how those fit into this picture, especially as they relate to mentoring?
Yeah, those are important ideas that highlight the social aspects of self-regulation. Co-regulation is about how you coordinate your own self-regulatory skills with other people in social situations. Think about a study group, where you might all be working together to plan your study schedule, quiz each other, or give feedback on each other's work. You're each bringing your own self-regulation skills to the table, and you're coordinating those efforts.
So it's a more interactive way of regulating your learning.
Exactly. And socially shared regulation takes this idea a step further. It's about those situations where a group of people are working together and they develop these shared goals and strategies for regulating their collective learning to achieve a common outcome. In this case, the focus is on the group itself becoming this self-regulating entity.
So it's about creating that shared sense of responsibility for the learning process.
Yes, and while research in this area is still pretty new, especially in the context of mentoring, it's a very promising area, particularly now that we're increasingly collaborating and learning in online environments. Think about virtual teams working on a project together.
And how do these concepts of co-regulation and socially shared regulation relate to mentoring specifically?
Well, remember that one of the goals of mentoring is to help proteges like you become more self-regulated. And as that mentoring relationship evolves, it often becomes more collaborative, with both parties co-regulating their learning and problem-solving together. These ideas are also super relevant to those newer forms of mentoring, like peer mentoring and group mentoring, which are becoming increasingly popular.
This is all giving us a much more complete picture of how learning unfolds and how we can really take control of that process, especially within those mentoring relationships. Now, how do researchers actually study self-regulated learning in individuals? And how could those methods be used to study mentoring more effectively?
Fantastic question. The ways we study self-regulated learning can give us some incredibly powerful tools for understanding what's actually happening during mentoring interactions and how those interactions are impacting you. Early research in this area relied a lot on questionnaires where you would, as a learner, report on the kinds of strategies you typically use to learn. And while that was helpful to get the ball rolling, questionnaires don't always capture what's going on in the moment when you're actively learning. They're relying on you to accurately remember what you did, which isn't always reliable.
Makes sense. So what are some of the other ways the researchers try to get a more real-time look into those learning processes?
Over time, researchers have developed a whole range of methods to get closer to those real-time learning experiences. One method is interviews, where learners can provide much richer, more detailed answers, and it allows them to reflect on their self-regulatory processes right after they've happened. Another technique is called a think aloud protocol. This is where you actually ask the learner to verbalize their thoughts while they're in the middle of a task. It gives you this incredible window into their cognitive processes without having to rely solely on their memory. We can also directly observe learners while they're learning, recording what they're doing, and then analyzing those recordings to identify specific self-regulatory behaviors. This can also help us see how things like the learning environment and opportunities for collaboration might be impacting them.
So we're getting a much more direct look at those in-the-moment processes. Are there other methods researchers use?
Yes. There are also traces, which are those tangible things that learners create as they work, like notes they take, parts of a text they highlight, even the way they organize their files. And in online learning environments, we can look at things like how long someone spends on a particular web page or which links they click on. All of these are clues about their learning strategies. Then there are microanalytic methods, which involve studying the learner's behaviors and their thinking in super close detail. Often this involves asking them specific questions at key moments to capture their immediate thoughts and feelings. And finally, learners might keep diaries over time where they document their thoughts, behaviors, and feelings related to their learning.
Well, so researchers have this really diverse set of tools to understand our learning processes. How can these methods be used to get a better understanding of what's going on in mentoring relationships? How can they help us?
That's the million-dollar question, right? Many of these methods that have been so helpful in self-regulated learning research could be incredibly valuable for understanding those mentoring interactions and how they're impacting you. For example, we could use think alouds to understand how mentors plan for their mentoring sessions, or to see how proteges make sense of the feedback they get. We could record those mentoring sessions and then do interviews with both the mentor and the protege afterward, using that recording to help them remember what happened and get their perspectives on the experience. We could use microanalytic methods to see how a protege's motivation or confidence might change during a mentoring session, even from moment to moment. And we could even analyze those written communications, like emails or drafts of documents that get exchanged, to understand how feedback is being incorporated.
It's like we could zoom in and really analyze the nuances of these interactions in a way that hasn't been done before.
Exactly. It's about getting more granular, more fine-tuned. And our sources have actually proposed a specific model for researching mentoring that integrates these ideas about self-regulated learning.
Okay, let's talk about that model. How does it work? What are the key takeaways for us?
The model is based on the idea that the ultimate goals of both mentoring and self-regulated learning are very much aligned. They're both about helping individuals like you become more independent and effective in your learning and in your work. While mentoring research has often focused on those end results, did the protege get a promotion? Did they publish their